excited to have you guys here with us. My name is Amanda Kozlowski, and this is my son, Leo. Leo, say hi.
Hi.
No, you have to hold the microphone up to say hi. So I don't know if it was your New Year's resolution to come and hang out at church, but for us, we had some New Year's resolutions. Leo, what was yours? You have to hold it up.
Doodling on my homework.
Yes, not doodling on homework. Do you remember what mom's was?
Not yelling at cars.
Not yelling at cars. So whatever your New Year's resolution is, we love that. We hope that you do well with that. And if coming to church or watching online was the thing that you chose, we're so glad that you are here with us this morning. We're super excited. Leo's doing bagels today here. So if you ever want to stop in and check us out in person, my son Leo here is happy to give you a cream cheese bagel. If not, enjoy the service today and we'll see you guys soon.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to 2024. It's so good to be with you guys. Would you guys go ahead and stand? Let's start in worship together this morning. Get this year started off right. Come on. Every eye be fixed upon King Jesus. Every tribe and tongue prepare the way. Every heart be filled with expectation. 'Cause the King is coming. The King is coming. Open the doors up. Come let the light in. People get ready. Get ready to worship Him. Open the doors up. Come let the light in. People get ready. Bow down and worship Him. We're singing holy is the Lord our God Almighty, who was and is and forever will be. Worthy of the honor and power and glory. Lift up your praise and welcome Him. 'Cause the King is coming. 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. I still got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense. So I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I built my life on Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful in every season. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. I believe he won't. 'Cause he won't. No, he won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand. When everything around me is shaking, I've never been more glad. And I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Rain came and wind blew. My house was built on you. I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. Rain came and wind blew. My house was built on you. I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it through.
Well, good morning and Happy New Year. Hold on, before you sit down. Turn to somebody next to you and just you haven't seen them since last year, so turn to somebody next to you and just say good morning. Let them know what the best part of 24 has been so far. Y'all are such fast greeters. You don't do what I ask, do you? Nobody shared what the best part of your 24 was, did you? Who said best part of their 24? Nobody. My best part of 24 so far has been last week. My daughter's turned 17, so that was crazy. It's dawning on me that my wife and I are like maybe a yearish away from being empty nesters. What the heck? I don't even know what to do with that right now. But hopefully year 24 has been off to a good start. I hope whatever this year has in store, I hope that is what you experience to be true more than anything else that we just sang. That Jesus is our foundation, that he never fails. No matter what fails you this year, no matter who fails you this year, whether it's a person, a relationship, your health, a job, he doesn't fail you, and he's not gonna fail you. He is our foundation. So if we haven't met yet, my name is Craig, part of the team here at Orion. A couple things to let you know about, things that are going on around all of our campuses, some that are happening local here at our campus. But we have a list. So I know this is announcement time is when we also check out. So if you see the person next to you, like on their phone or not paying attention, this is your permission to elbow them, okay? If you want to practice right now, go ahead, throw the elbow. Hey, go ahead, elbow your dad, get him good. There you go, just like that, harder and higher next time, right in the nose. All right, so a couple things. First of all, I thought we would celebrate Christmas. I mean, that was a pretty big event that happened all around Kensington a couple weeks ago. So hopefully you were at one of our Christmas services. Apparently here at Orion, 11,000 people were. So that's pretty amazing. Between in-person and online, we saw 11,000 here at our campus. Across all of Kensington, we saw 27,000 people participate in Christmas this year, which, given the last couple of years and all that we have gone through and the challenges that COVID brought and everything else, this has just been, it's been a year to remind us of what we just sang. God is faithful, and he is still using his church to make an impact in this world like he set it up to do. So Christmas was awesome. We had a blast celebrating it with you. Looking forward to doing it again next year, and we're already well underway with Easter plans. Coming up in a couple of weeks, we have our Hope Water Gala. That's going to be on the 26th of this month. If you don't know what the Hope Water Gala is it a gala or a gala? Yeah, you just introduced the whole third term. I can't. It's that. We're doing that. But this is our biggest annual fundraiser for putting in wells for the Pokot people in Kenya. Last year at the Hope Water Gala, we were able to raise more money to put in more wells in one single time than in most of our history of trying to raise money to do this. We were able to put in, through just that one evening, 5 wells. Each well are able to service at least 1,000 people in a different community. So this year, we have high hopes, high expectations. We'd love to have you be a part of this as well. This is one of the most important things that we feel like God has given us to be a part of and to do, that we get to do throughout the year. So that happens in a couple of weeks. You can register online, you can get tables, or you can just get a seat, but we would love to have you there and be a part of that for the evening. We have been, as a team, trying to figure out what to do in response to the conflict going on between Israel and Gaza. We have come to you a number of weeks ago. We raised some money. We sent that over to one of our global partners, which was incredibly helpful. But obviously, the conflict still goes on. And so we want to bring together as many people across our campuses as possible this Tuesday night for a night of prayer. So this is going to happen at our Troy location at 7 o'clock on the 9th. It's going to happen at our Troy location, just a time across all campuses for people to come together for an evening to pray for the conflict, to pray for a cease of it, to pray for the people affected, to pray for the wisdom of leaders making decisions, and just to come together and do what we believe as followers of Jesus is one of the most powerful things we can do, which is beg God to move. So that's happening this week on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we are having our first 2024 midweek service here at this campus. It's going to be interesting because the last one we did was our Christmas one to kick off the month of December. If you were with us, we did the tree lighting. It was a pretty big one. It always is for us. But it was different because it's a tree lighting. We had like 750 people there. And I was just, at one point, if you were there, maybe remember this, I was surrounded by kids. Like, that'll be a little different this time. It's probably not gonna happen. At one point, I asked a question, and like an army of kids surrounded me. There was one kid that was like tugging on my pants the whole time. I was really glad my belt was on tight. I'm like, what are you doing? But it was an awesome night. Well, we have our next one coming up again this Wednesday. Would love to have you join us. The band's been getting ready. Everybody has. We'll convert the room over as usual. And this is one of my favorite things that we do once a month. So would love to have you join us on Wednesday for that. Move out. So I'm going to talk for a minute about one of the things that we do locally. So we talk about Hope Water Gala. That's some of what we do internationally, what we get to do around the world. But one of the things that God has led us to do here locally is to figure out how do we move out of our seats, out of our buildings, into our community, and actually be the hands and the feet of Jesus in real and intangible ways. Not just talk about loving people, not just talk about doing good for people, but actually do it. And so that's where, if you've heard the term move out, many of you have, but if you're new to Kensington, maybe you haven't, that's where the term move out has come from. It is the effort of our communities across all campuses to get out of our seats in our buildings and into our communities to make a difference and to serve. One of our favorite partners is a guy named Mike Schmidt. He runs a group called Elevate Detroit. It is one of our move-out partners, and Mike's here. Mark's part of our campus. I want to bring Mike up for a minute, and he's just going to share a little bit about what move-out is. It has a strong tie to some of what we're going to talk about this morning, but it's also an opportunity, I think, as we're moving into this new year, asking God, what do you want to do with me? How do you want to use me? I think we should be looking for the opportunities around us that are the easiest places for us to immediately step into and say, we want to do something as well. So would you guys just welcome Mike as he shares a little bit more of the kind of the history and the heartbeat of what is Elevate Detroit.
That was a fun little misspeak there on my last name.
Yeah, it was. It really was. But
sorry.
You know what? I apologize.
I don't
but
care.
You know what? Since you're going to call me out, I'm going to call you out.
Good.
It's actually not pop. It is soda.
Get off of this. Get out of here.
No, pop?
Vote.
Who says pop? Who says soda? You guys are wrong. You guys, the pop people are just wrong. All right, I'm wasting time. Mike.
My name's Mike. So I went through, I'm gonna start a little bit personally. I went through a time back late 90s, early 2000s where my family just fell apart. And I went through a time where I experienced what I would describe as the family of God taking me in. And I felt homeless at the time. I had a home. I was never like that. But I didn't have a place where that felt like peace, calm, rest, any of that. And so a lot of people took me in and did a lot of things. And then fast forward a few years, and my friend John, I didn't come up with this idea. It was John's idea. So my friend John had this idea, and he sent a Facebook message out to 10 or 15 of us. I think I was the only one who was out of college at the time and literally had graduated a week or two before. But was like, I know where there's this vacant lot, and there's always a few homeless guys hanging around there. What do you guys think would happen if we just brought some food and a grill and just hung out for the day? Like, didn't try to feed anybody, just hung out, threw a Frisbee around, that kind of thing. And I kind of thought it was more likely for us to either get beat up or arrested than for it to go well, but it did go well. And like I said, we were like all in college, and I remember somebody's parents gave us like a $40 gift card to Gordon Food Service, and we just like, jackpot. Like, this is it. And I had done a little bit of work with some other churches and stuff, and was trying to do this little thing. And we had raised some money for this separate thing and did a barbecue cookout thing for just church people before this, disconnected from John's idea. And we had raised some money, and we bought all this food, and we had extra food. So I packed it in my freezer at home, ready for the next thing. And then John's got this idea, and I come thinking, I don't have anything to contribute. I just got out of college. I do not have a job. I can't find a job because this is 2007. And so I just came because that's all I could do is I could come. And so while we're there, I'm standing there talking to this guy, and we're waiting in line to get food, and I was looking forward to some food. And this guy just had told me, like, I'm so glad you guys are here, or I wouldn't get anything to eat today. And then it like behind me at the same time, I hear somebody say, I'm sorry, but we're out of food. And in my mind's eye, all I could see was my freezer at home, which had been packed with like the same stuff that other people had brought and shared. And I wasn't trying to be stingy or anything like that. I was trying to be wise with what I had. But I knew in that moment that the reason that guy wasn't going to eat that day, and the reason I wasn't going to get lunch was because I hadn't brought what I could to share. Like, it just didn't even occur to me. It was not even, And so I decided right then that I was going to take that food and use it, and we were going to try and do it once a month. And so I called some friends some of whom were pastors who had budgets. I didn't have any budget, but, and I thought, let's just try and do this once a month and just focus on creating a time when people can get to know each other. And there's a statistic out there that says the number one cause of homelessness and the number one thing that keeps people on the streets once they're there is the lack of a support network. So it's not the addiction, or it's not the crime, or it's not the mental illness, or whatever the stereotypes are. Like, those exist, but the difference between me and someone who's on the street corner is that if I have a problem with addiction, or really run a run of really bad luck, or anything like that, I have people who will take me in, who will drive me to rehab, who will call me out, who will help me find a job, who will do whatever it is. They don't. That's the difference. And so what we try to do is just create a space where like everybody can get together and get to know each other. And the hope is that people have a chance to build relationships. And I can tell you that some of the strongest Christians I've ever met, when I've gotten to know them, they were sleeping on the street or in a shelter or whatever. Like there's some really inspiring stories. And so that's, what we do is not about feeding people, it's about meeting people. It is not a time to like give away charity, because everybody, I don't care who you are, everybody has something to contribute, and it's important that you contribute it, whatever that is. It might just be picking up trash, it might be moving chairs, it might be whatever it is. Everybody's got something they can do, and if we all work together, then that's the body of Christ. Be in the body, be in the whole body. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, you guys just thank Mike for what. So, hey, Mike, real quick. So for people that want to be involved or want to be a part of it, like, what do they do? Where do they go?
We have a website where there's information. I'm pretty sure it works. I haven't checked it in a really long time. But there's a Facebook group of Elevate Detroit. There's and a page and whatnot. But the biggest thing is just show up. I mean, it's 3000 4th Street in Detroit, and 1 o'clock on Saturdays.
3000 4th Street,
Yep.
1 o'clock every Saturday.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Very cool.
Dress
Do you
warm in
guys
the winter.
serve soda?
We do not. I don't know what that is. That's baking. That's what you bake with.
Get out of here. Our band's going to lead us through a song right now that I hope as they do and as you engage with it, what you'll catch out of this song is that this is part of our heartbeat here at Kensington. And it's part of the heartbeat you just heard from Mike. Is the song's title is For the One. And we serve a Jesus. We serve a God who came to us, who came to the one. You and I are the one, and compels us then to be the same kind of people. So as we do sing this, just remember, this is our heartbeat, not just a song.
Let me be filled with kindness and compassion for the one for whom so that when they look in my eyes, they would see you. Even in just a smile, they would feel the Father's love. Oh, how you love us, from the homeless to the famous and in between. You formed us, you made us carefully, 'cause in the end, we're all your children. Help me to love with open arms like you do, a love that erases all the lines and sees the truth, so that when they look in my eyes, they would see you. Even in just a smile, they would feel the Father's love. Let all my life tell of who you are, and the wonder of your never-ending love. Let all my life tell of who you are. You are wonderful and such a good Father. Let all my life tell of who you are, and the wonder of your never-ending love. Let all my life tell of who you are. You are wonderful and such a good Father. You are wonderful and such a good Father. Help me to love with open arms like you do, a love that erases all the lines and sees the truth, so that when they look in my eyes, they would see you. Even in just a smile, they would feel the Father's love. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. So will I. If the sum of all our praises still falls short, we'll sing again 100 billion God of salvation, you chased down my heart through all of my failure and pride. Sing it out. On the hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. to your desire. You're the one who never leaves the one behind. You're the one who never leaves the one behind. Yes, you're the one who never leaves the one behind.
There's three words that are I think, like the centerpiece of that song. The last three words that were just sung, so will I. It's like an anthem of a promise that who Jesus is, I'm going to strive to be. We're going to strive to be. And the problem with that is, or the challenge with that is, that of all the things that the Bible tells us about who God is and his nature and his being, is that one of them is that he's above us. He's not like us. That his ways are not like our ways. His thoughts are not like our thoughts. As a matter of fact, the Old Testament tells us that his thoughts are above our thoughts. His ways are above our ways. And so we sing these songs that are essentially us saying, we want to be like you. So will I. If you are sacrificial, then so will I. If you're giving, then so will I. If you're forgiving, then so will I. If you make the right choice, even though it costs you, so will I. The problem is, and the challenge is that his ways are so much above our ways. His thoughts so much above our thoughts, which means that he sees this life differently than we do. He sees people different than we do. He sees situations different than we do. He just sees different than we do. So how do we follow in the footsteps of a God who is so much higher than we are, who sees so much differently than we see? As I'm going into this year, one of the things I'm asking myself is, God, how do I partner in the places in my life that you want to create change? How am I a partner in those areas instead of a combatant? For us as a church, like, where are the places that you want to create change in us? How is it that you want me to see different? How is it that you want us to see different? I think it's one of the reasons why the Bible doesn't just talk about God seeing. I think it so often talks about us seeing. It talks about not just what we see, but it talks about how we see. One place, quickly, in the book of Matthew, chapter 6, it says this: your eyes are the lamp to your body. If your eyes are healthy, then your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. And if then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? The eyes are the lamp of the body. So I just want to spend a little bit of time as we lean into this whole new year, just asking God to speak to us about our eyes. And not just what we see, but how we see. And helping us move towards greater places of his behavior, of his thinking, which means we have to move towards places of seeing like he sees. So let me pray, and then we're going to jump in. Jesus, thank you for this year. Thank you for last year. Thank you for what you're doing in our life. Thank you that we can sing even when life seems to fall apart. You're faithful. Somehow, in a mysterious way, you are still faithful even when life isn't faithful, even when we're not faithful. And so, God, I pray that this morning you would be close to us, you would speak to us. I pray, God, that you would get past the places even where we've created our own defense to not want to hear you. That you'd help us to hear the places that you want to speak into that we've shut you down. That you would give us the ability to not just hear you, but know your voice distinguished from all others. Because sometimes other people's voice we think is yours. Sometimes our own voice we think is yours. And so I pray that you'd give us the ability not just to hear you, but to know your voice above all other voices. And I pray that as we open up your scriptures and as we read them, that you would give us tremendous insight about our sight. That you would talk to us about what it means to see more like you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so you know this, but we're going to take up our offering for just a moment. And this is one of the best things that we get to do together as a community, is really say, hey, how do we join our efforts and join our forces to make a difference? Lots of ways we do that. This is one of them. So to all of you that helped us do all we did last year in 23, we're excited to do even more in 24. So thank you for how you participate in these moments. If you would like to be a part of these and you're not, we'd love to have you join us in it. All the ways on your screen. We pass buckets as well. They're coming down and around right now. And these are the moments that don't do everything that we do, but it accomplishes a lot of what we do. So thank you. All right, quick question. As we're talking about seeing, I want to ask you to think about a moment in your life where you have been in a situation with someone else experiencing the exact same thing or seeing the exact same thing and yet seeing it totally different, right? Probably never happened with your spouse. But think about a moment where you have been experiencing the exact same thing, but you're seeing it totally different. So this last couple of weeks, my wife and I, over the break between Christmas and coming back, we went up to Canada. We had planned ahead of time to do some snowboarding with our girls and with our son and his new wife, and we went with some friends of ours. So we had this trip that we had just planned. We were going to go up to Blue Mountain in Canada. And Christmas around here, the whole season, like starting pretty much like mid-October to the end of the year, is just crazy town around Kensington. So I was genuinely looking forward to this for weeks and weeks. Like by the time we got into like the fifth service, that's what I was thinking about. You want to know the truth? I would come up and I'd be like, in a couple of days, I'm just gonna get some R&R. Like I needed this time to get away. I needed it to relax. I was totally looking forward to some snowboarding. Our friends are gonna be there. I mean, this was a whole new experience for us with my son and his wife that were joining us for the first time on a family vacation, which is all kinds of newness for us. My girls, it was gonna be the biggest mountain they've ever snowboarded because it's all they've done is like stuff around Michigan. So like everything about this was like, we needed this trip and we were looking forward to it. Then we get the bad news that the weather's not looking so good. If you were paying attention a couple of weeks ago, it was awful weather for any kind of skiing or snowboarding or fun in the snow. But we had a house we'd rented in Ontario. We're like, we gotta go, so let's just go. And it may not be the best conditions that we've ever boarded in, but we're gonna make the best of it, right? So 6 hours after we pulled out of our driveway, this is what we pulled up to see. Now, there's a couple of different kinds of reactions people have in a moment like this. Some of you immediately start to think of all the positives. You're like, well, we could do something else, or we could hike, or we could bike, or we could, and you just have a positive outlook no matter what. And then there's other people more like me, where you just like immediately get frustrated. When I was a kid growing up, my dad, whenever we would like whine or pout about anything, my dad would get super snarky with us and he'd be like, oh, Craig's throwing a pouty. Let's invite everybody to your pouty. Mr. Mad and Mr. Sad and Mr. Angry. And I'm like, shut up, Dad. But he would, well, I'm just telling you, I was throwing a major pouty and everybody was invited. Like Mr. Cynical, Mr. Angry, Mr. I don't care that my kids are seeing my behavior right now. Like everybody showed up to this little pouty in my car. I'm sitting in the parking lot looking at that and I was ready to fight the universe. I'm like, why? You ever have those moments where you just feel like, and you know this is a stupid thought, but you feel like the whole universe is against you? You're like, what is going on? I'm like, I was sitting in my car going, why does Canada hate me? My wife is like, Canada doesn't care about you. I'm like, no, even Canada hates me. The universe hates me. I'm like, God, we just did all these services. Why do you hate me? I mean, I was just over top. I was overboard. And my wife looks at me at one point and she goes, babe, the girls are paying attention to your response. I was like, I don't care. And then she goes, you know what? Here's what I see. I see an opportunity for us to have an adventure. And I was like, you can get out of my car right now. Go have your adventure. That was gonna be the adventure. Like, we just did not see things the same way. Do me a favor. Would you look at somebody next to you and just say this? It's gonna be important all morning long. Outcome is determined by outlook. Outcome is determined by outlook. My wife and I did not see that scenario the same way. We were looking at the exact same thing and we did not see it the same at all. And I'm so glad we didn't. Because she ended up preemptively knowing that it probably wasn't gonna be great conditions. She packed a bunch of board games. We're not a board game family. Like that's just not something that we do. And so she packed a bunch of board games and we had a blast. Anybody play Pit? This is a new one we just got for Christmas. Holy smokes. That is one of the funnest games I've ever played. I'm telling you, go get it, play it. You're gonna love it and have the time of your life, or you're gonna need family therapy. Either way, it's gonna be a memory. So we played Pit, we played all kinds of other board games. She planned a hike for us one day because she's seeing everything different. I'm just pouting. She's seeing everything different. So she plans this hike for us. We probably should have been smart enough to realize that all the rain the days before was not gonna make for a great hike through the woods up to the peak of the mountain, Blue Mountain. But we did it anyways, and I will tell you, we came back at the end, we were muddier than I don't know what, but we were just head to toe, completely covered in mud. My new daughter-in-law wore a nice coat all the way down to her ankles. She wore her nice blunt stones. She was not a happy camper at this hike. I mean, people are like, no, it's good, I can walk, whoop, and they're down, and I wanted to show a video this morning of my wife slipping and falling, but she wouldn't let me for some reason. So it was just, we got to the end of it, and I'll tell you what, I guarantee you, we will remember that trip more because of those moments than we would have if we would have just gone to plan and everybody boarded like we had hoped for. And it was all because my wife saw something very differently than I saw it. And that's because outlook changes what? Outcome. Outlook changes outcome. Throughout the Bible, there's countless examples of the difference in how God sees things and how we see things. Examples of how he's attempting to constantly elevate his disciples, his followers, and I think ultimately you and I to see more like he sees. One of those is probably a pretty familiar story, but I wanna read it this morning for you because I think it's a perfect way. If we're gonna talk about trying to see more like he sees, I think it's a great way for us to start off the new year. Now, here's what I did for this story. This is one of the few that's found in all of the gospel accounts. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, all exclusively about the life of Jesus, teachings of Jesus. So they sometimes, certain authors will tell a story that other authors don't. This is one of the ones, the accounts that all of them, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, they all record. But they also all record a little bit different details, not conflicting details, but when you put them all together, it fills the story out a lot bigger. There's certain details in some accounts that it's like, why didn't you include that? That's an important detail. And so what I did is put together a harmony reading. In other words, taking all the accounts and putting them together into one reading so you get all the details in one place. So we're gonna put this up on the screen. I'm gonna read it, but you're not gonna be able to read it if you grab your Bible and flip it open right now, unless somehow you mad dash back and forth between Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all at the same time, which is impossible. So here is what happened in this account. When the apostles had returned, they had gathered around Jesus and told him everything that they had done and taught. So really quickly, prior to this, Jesus sent out his apostles, his disciples, on a mission to go share the gospel. He gave them power. He gave them authority. He told them, you're going to heal the sick. You're going to cast out demons. Some towns are going to accept you. Some towns are going to kick you out, and they're going to reject you. So all of that is what they're coming from. They're coming from this time of incredible experiences, incredible rejection, incredible invitation, incredible response. So this is what they're coming. So they're coming back to Jesus to kind of report on everything that happened. So Jesus, they came to him to tell them everything that they had done and they had taught. And he said to them, come with me privately to an isolated place, and I want you to rest for a while. For many were coming and going, and there was no time to even eat. And so they went away by themselves in a boat to some remote place near a town called Bethsaida, on the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias. But a large crowd was following Jesus because they were observing the miraculous signs that he was performing on the sick. And many saw them leaving and recognized them. And they hurried on foot from all the towns, and they arrived there ahead of Jesus. And as Jesus came to shore, he saw a large crowd, and he welcomed them on the other side of the mountain and sat down there with his disciples. And Jesus taught them many things about the kingdom of God, and he cured those who needed healing. And when it was already late, Jesus' disciples came to him and said, this is an isolated place, and it's late. So send them away that they can go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy something for themselves to eat and to find lodging. But Jesus answered them, they don't need to go. You give them something to eat. And he said this to Philip, who then responded, well, where can we buy bread so that these people can eat? Now, Jesus said this to test him, for he knew what he was going to do. And Philip replied, 200 silver coins worth of bread would not be enough for them, not for each one to get a little. So should we go and buy bread for 200 silver coins and give it to them to eat? And Jesus said to his disciples, how many loaves do we have? Go and see. And one of the disciples named Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, found out and he said, here's a boy and he only has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good are these for so many people, unless we go and buy food for all of them? And then he directed them to all sit down in groups on the green grass, because there was a lot of grass in that place. And so they did as Jesus directed. They sat in groups of 100 and 50s. And then he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and he broke the loaves. And he gave them to his disciples to serve to the people, and he divided up the 2 fish among them who were seated, as much as they wanted. And when they were all satisfied, Jesus said to his disciples, gather up the broken pieces and the fish that are left over so that nothing is wasted. So they gathered them up, and they filled 12 baskets with broken pieces from the 5 barley loaves and the fish that were left over by the people who had not eaten. Not counting women and children, there were about 5,000 men who ate. Now, one of the challenges when we read the Bible is what I would just simply call interpretation application. When we read the Bible, it's to interpret what's being written. Did this really happen? Is it allegory? Is it literal? Is it parable? And then when you interpret it, then you're supposed to figure out, what do we do with this? Is the application part. What's it telling me about God? What's it telling me about me? What's it telling me about other people? And so as you look at the story, for example, like, did this really happen? I would say, yes, absolutely. It's not a clear allegory. It's not a clear parable. I think this is a literal event. If it's not any of those, not a clear example, not a clear allegory, then we take it as a literal reading, no matter how impossible it may sound or seem. Like side note example would be a story that for a long time was uber criticized, Jonah and the whale. You know, Jonah swallowed by a whale 3 days and spit up on shore. Like for centuries, people have been like, can't happen. You get swallowed by a whale, you're just a dead man. It can't happen. Until a couple years ago, a guy off the New England coast was swallowed by a whale and then afterwards spit up alive out of the whale's mouth. So no matter how radical a story seems, if it's not clearly just an illustration, we go, it must have literally happened. So we look at the story, we go, did it happen? Yes. Does it teach us that our God is a miracle-working God? Yes. Does it mean then for us, application, that if your fridge is empty, go to McDonald's, buy a Happy Meal, pray over it, and it'll feed you for a year? Probably not. Nobody wants that anyways. So what does it mean for us? Several things I think we could mine out of this passage. Things about who God is and how God behaves and who we are and who one another is. But the one single thing I want us to get is the one thing I continue to hammer. God sees different than we see. But we can begin to learn with his help how to see more like him. Which is so important, because say it with me again, what have I been saying? Outlook what? Outlook changes outcome. Let me just say really quickly on the note of this and why it's so important. I don't want to be the same person this time next year that I presently am. I want it to be said of me a year from now, I have grown to look more like Jesus, act more like Jesus, think more like Jesus. I don't want to be exactly the same a year from now, which is most of our endeavors, right? We start every year and it's new you and all that stuff, new year. And then most of the time it's a new year and it's the same you. Like, I don't want same me in 2025 that I'm going to be in 2024, that I am at this present moment. And some of you maybe you're like, nah, I'm fine with that. I love exactly 100% everything about who I am. I want to be the same person this day in 2025. You should write a book, because we all need to know what you figured out. But for the rest of you, if you're with me and you're like, I want to experience change in my life this next year. I want to look more like Jesus. I want to think more like him, act more like him. I want his thoughts to be more my thoughts. I want his ways to be more my ways. I think that begins with us asking him, teach me to see like you see. When we start to see like he sees, we start to think like he thinks. We start to act then like he acts. So how did the disciples see different than Jesus that he tried to elevate? Well, for starters, number one, where the disciples saw a problem, Jesus saw potential. Where the disciples saw a problem, Jesus saw potential. Their first response after this whole long day, so they show up, this crowd follows, Jesus decides, okay, we're not gonna retreat for the day, we're gonna love on people, we're gonna heal, we're gonna teach, and he spends a whole day with them. Now the whole day has gone by, and the disciples go, we have no food for these people, so send them away. They just see the problem in front of them. They see a massive amount of people and a lot of hungry people. Now the text tells us 5,000 men were there. It's weird, but different time, different day and age, different values. The women and the children wouldn't have been counted. And so most scholars believe that when you count everybody that was there, which wasn't just men, that you're probably talking somewhere between 10, 15, and even upwards of 20,000 people were actually there that day. 20,000 people. Anybody been to Little Caesars Arena? It seats 20,000 people. Imagine standing in the middle of Little Caesars Arena and somebody says to you, look around, see all these people? Every seat's filled. They're getting hungry and it's your job to feed them, and all the restaurants are closed. Like, this is that moment. 20,000 people. And you know as well as I do, you can only stay hungry for so long before you become what? You got about 30 minutes for me. The minute I start feeling hungry, you got like T-minus 30 minutes, and I go to full hangry. Like, so the disciples, this is why they're seeing a problem. They're like, we don't have what we need to take care of this. This is a lot of people. They're exhausted. We're exhausted. And they're about to move from hungry to hangry. All they see is the problem. They see none of the potential in this place of what could be done. The problem that they see, though, is largely related to the place that they're in. The text tells us that they're in a remote place. If they'd have been maybe in Rome, it would have been different. If they'd been in a big city or a metropolis, maybe they would have had a different outlook. If they had been surrounded by food trucks, different outlook. The problem is they're in a remote place, which means nothing is there. I know this is obvious, but go with me for a minute, because every detail in the text is always important. The fact that they're in a remote place is what's leading to them seeing the problem and not the potential, because they don't have anything that they think that they need that they would have otherwise relied on in a moment like this. You remember the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks years ago? I'm gonna spoil this for you if you haven't seen it, but it's like 25 years old, so that's on you. But Tom Hanks, he's in a plane goes down, he's cast away on a remote island, and so that's like most of the movie is him on an island trying to figure out how to survive. First half of the movie, like everything he sees is a problem. And that's because he's on a remote island. And so he doesn't have the resources he's used to. He doesn't have the lodging that he's accustomed. He doesn't have anything that his previous life, shy of this island, afforded him. And so that means everything he sees is just a problem. But you remember about halfway through the movie, his mindset started to shift. And instead of just seeing the problems, he starts to see the potential. Even in a remote island, he sees the potential of everything around him. So much so that he sees that a volleyball can become his best friend. An ice skate can become an axe. A cave can become his new castle. And even eventually, the porta potty walls that blow up onto the island can become the sail of a boat that he makes and eventually lead him to his salvation. I think you and I go through seasons that feel like remote places. Seasons where it feels like something got taken away from us. That leaves us looking only at what we don't have or what we've lost and then only seeing the problems in front of us. Places where I think so often God would go, you don't need to leave this remote place. I'm gonna do my best work in it. Because what's the disciples? They're just going, we gotta leave. We gotta send the people away. We gotta send them somewhere where there is food, where there is lodging. We gotta send them away from the remote place. We don't wanna be in remote places. But some of us are in a remote place right now. You've lost something that you previously relied on. And so all you see is the problem in front of you. And maybe the remote place, the sense of loss, the thing that's changed, maybe it's your health. Maybe it was a job. Maybe the loss of a job, God's going, there's potential here. I'm gonna create something new in terms of ability and talent and understanding in you. Maybe it's friends. I met a couple of people over Christmas that have actually moved into the Detroit area. And they've kind of restarted, leaving family, leaving friends, leaving networks, leaving communities. Maybe that's you. And maybe your remote place is literally feeling isolated right now and much more of a real remoteness because you left friends that you're like, all you see are the problems in front of you right now because you don't have who you had. You don't have what you had. But maybe it's in this place that God's gonna create some of the most incredible relationships you've ever had. Relationships that will be maybe some of the most meaningful of your entire life that will be created because you're in a remote place, not because you stayed where you were. I just wonder if for some of us, is it possible that maybe one of the ways God's challenging us to see different, to see more like Him, is to see that the problems in front of us that we want to get away from are actually the place that He has potential in store. Maybe even for some of us, he's telling us that the remote place that you prefer to leave is somewhere where you don't need to because you don't yet see the potential. You don't yet see what it is he could be up to. And our outlook changes what? Our outlook changes our outcome. You also see that the disciples, different than Jesus, it says here that the disciples, where they saw the impossible, I think Jesus saw the solution. Right? In every community, in every group, you've got different kinds of people. You've got the planners and you've got the, we'll figure it outers. Right? You got people that count all the details in the beans and you got people that are just like, let's just go with the flow. Well, in this group, you've got a mix of both. And one of Jesus' disciples comes to him, Philip, and he's the planner, he's the counter. And Philip's like, hey, I'm doing the math here, and the math tells me that not only do we have too many people to feed, but if we scrounged up every penny we could, all we could maybe do is scratch the surface of a few people. So he's counting everything up, and he's going, there's no way we can feed all these people. This is an impossible scenario. And I love it because when they first go, hey, what are we going to do? What did Jesus say? Because Philip's like, we should send them all away. And Jesus goes, no. You feed them. You take care of it. What's interesting is not only does he only see the impossible because they don't have the amount of resources necessary, neither do they have the skill. All the disciples come from a different background of career before they started following Jesus. None of them were bakers. None of them had the ability to look around and go, well, there's raw resources here that we could turn into bread if we really want. Like, none of them know how to necessarily make bread. So this is outside of what they do, it's outside of who they are, and it's outside of what they have. And so all they see is the impossible. But Jesus sees the solution. And they're the solution. When he looks at them, he says, you feed them. You take care of this. I was talking to Andrew Kim. He's lead pastor over at our Troy campus this last week. And we were just kind of thinking about this whole moment of the disciples seeing only the impossible, and yet Jesus knowing that the impossible is about to get broken. And we were both talking about and thinking about the fact that throughout all of human history, there are so many moments where we have a tendency to we have to choose to either see the impossible or how the impossible could be solved with us being a part of the solution. For example, think about the fact that for all of human history, billions and billions of people at one point or another, and many times over, have sat and looked up into the night sky, seen the stars and the planets and the moon, and they've just thought, beautiful, amazing. And yet at one point in human history, a few decades ago, there was one man that sat and stared up into the night sky named Sergei Korolev, who actually thought, we could go there. And I think I can get us there. Which is why in 1961, we were able to send the first person up into space and successfully bring them back because of the rocket that Sergei had built. I don't think fundamentally that's all too different from what Mike was just telling us about that he's been a part of. Whether it was his idea or not, there were definitely clear moments where he's like, do we have enough? I don't know if we have enough, but I'm gonna be a part of the solution. And so as he leaned in to try to figure out how do I become part of the solution instead of just go, this is impossible. We can't feed Detroit. We can't bring together this community. How do we serve the homeless? How do we create community and relationships among them? How do we just do a barbecue that creates friendships, creates support, creates network? Instead of just seeing the impossible, he said, I'm gonna be a part of the solution. What he didn't tell you when he was up here is that to date, they estimate that they've been able to serve over 200,000 people. That they've brought together to love one another, to care for one another, to create community, to create friendships, all over a simple meal that began with him realizing I can use what's in my freezer differently. I can do something about this. I think so often we have the potential to see things as just impossible and can't be accomplished when God says, no. I want to actually see you and help you see yourself as part of the solution. And I just wonder if there's something not in your life right now that you see as impossible, and God has actually picked you and chosen you to be a part of the solution. Maybe you even are the solution. And I think sometimes those situations in my life, they always look a little bit different for different people. For me, sometimes those impossible situations also look a lot like frustrating situations. They're the moments in life that are easier to complain about or criticize or hope somebody else will figure out how to fix and do something about. The moments that just create kind of that internal angst that this shouldn't be, or it should be different, or it should be a different way. Kind of like Tim Ballard. Anybody see the movie Sound of Freedom? I know a lot of us did. If you haven't seen the movie, it is an amazing movie. It's based on the life of a man named Tim Ballard, who at one point just got frustrated beyond no end as he watched the world of human trafficking with children being used, exploited, shipped around. And he looked at this ocean of a problem, felt like all he had was a bucket to do anything about it, but he decided eventually, out of that frustration, that he would do something. And the something that he did eventually started a foundation and an organization that to date has freed almost 4,000 kids from human trafficking, all of which would have been abused, many of which would have been killed. That's because he believed something that I think is so important that we have to learn to believe, that sometimes your frustration is your calling. That sometimes the things you look at and believe are absolutely impossible, God goes, change your perspective. Because I actually want to use you to be part of the solution. And I think that there are things this year that we're only going to accomplish as a church. Listen to me. There are things this year we will only accomplish as a church when some of you who are hearing my voice right now begin to believe that a frustrating impossibility looking you in the face is actually one of the very things that God has anointed you to be part of solving. And when you begin to believe that, your mindset starts to change. And when your outlook changes, what else changes? Your outcome. I think part of what we also see is Jesus challenging the disciples' belief that they just had too little. Because where they saw too little, Jesus saw just enough. The disciples come back to Jesus after he sends them, hey, go see what we've got. They're like, we don't have enough money. We can't buy enough food. He goes, well, what's in the crowd? And here's what's interesting. He knew that there wasn't food in the crowd. He knew there certainly wasn't enough food to feed everybody in the crowd, but he sends them into the crowd to take evaluation and assessment of what's around them. And they come back and they report what? Well, we found this kid, this random little kid, the only planner in the group apparently. All he's got is his own personal Happy Meal, and it's the only thing we found. And that's what they come back reporting. This is all we have. It's only fish and bread for one person. What they would go on to very quickly learn is that is all they needed. And they didn't need more. But sometimes we look at situations in life and we go, I don't have enough. It's too little. And Jesus goes, no, it's exactly what you need because you also have me. As a matter of fact, I think sometimes the I don't have enough mentality is exactly that. It's a mentality more than it is a reality of what you do and don't have. For example, think about it this way. The dying wish that they had the time that you complain you don't have enough of. The poor wish that they had the resources, the money, the stuff that you say you don't have enough of. The widow wishes they had the spouse that you think isn't changing fast enough. The homeless, the jobless, wish that they had the career that you think doesn't appreciate you enough. Have you ever stopped to think about the fact that there is somebody right now in this world begging God for the things, the opportunities, and the relationships that mark your life? And I think sometimes there are things that God wants to accomplish in our lives that require us to spend more time evaluating what we do have instead of complaining about what we don't, and then offering that up to God to believe He can do more with it than we could ever imagine or accomplish on our own. Sometimes when all we see is what we don't have enough of, it requires us to actually take inventory of what we do have. And not to conclude that it's not enough, but to conclude that if God's involved, it's all we need. And I almost wonder if even in that place, if the greater thing that God's trying to teach some of us this year is what He tried to teach the disciples, and I think they started to learn over time, which is this. If you have Him, you have all you need. And I don't know how and I don't know when, but I do know this. At some point this year, if you continue to walk with Jesus, He's going to pose that question to you. Am I enough? Even in the face of losing something that you feel like right now I couldn't possibly lose. Maybe a relationship, a job, your health. maybe your joy. He's going to look at you at some point this year, if he isn't already, and he's going to ask you, am I enough? And if you're not careful, your eyes will deceive you to believe that he is not if all you see is what you don't have. Because our outlook changes our outcome. Last place I think Jesus is trying to change the disciples' ability to see is where the disciples saw a crowd to contend with, Jesus saw people to care for. Where they saw a crowd to contend with, he saw people to care for. Now, remember, if you go back to the start of this whole day, it began with the disciples coming back from this retreat that he had essentially sent them on. They're exhausted. They're excited. They want to tell him everything that's happened. The text tells us, if you read before what we read, that there were people that were healed. There were towns that joyfully welcomed them. There were towns that kicked them out and said, we don't want it here. Like, there's excitement, there's exhaustion, they're ready to come back and tell them everything that's happened. They haven't been together in a while. They haven't seen each other. They come back, they have a time. I don't know how long it took, but they have a time, it says, where they reported everything that happened. It sounds like it went on for a while because they didn't even have time to eat, so now they're also hungry themselves. And so Jesus himself personally is also wrestling with all of this. He's taking it all in, as well as the fact that he's just learned that his cousin John has been executed. So he's got the grief of a family member that he's just lost. So all of that's taking place, which is why he pulls them away to retreat. He's like, we're going to go to an excluded place ourselves. We need some R&R. This is their Blue Mountain moment. He's like, we need to get away. And then here comes the crowd following them. Now, there's other times that we see throughout the Gospels when a crowd shows up and the disciples are busy or tired, they're ready to send the crowd away. They're ready to just say, another time, another place, we're going to be away. Which is easy what Jesus could have continued to do. It's like, listen, we justifiably need a break. And I don't know if this is true for your life, but I feel like it has been true for mine many times over. And not because of the church. It's just life. It feels like the times I most need a break in life are the times that people most need something from me. And this is a moment that Jesus, because this was justified, he could have totally pulled back. He could have justified taking his disciples on this break that they had planned. But instead, he leans into the people that he could have so easily avoided. I think for all of us, there are people that would be a crowd, if you will, in our life. A crowd that we feel like we just have to contend with, we have to put up with. And maybe it's the same person or the same crowd or the same people. Maybe it's because you're just always contending with them and you're exhausted by them. Maybe it's not them, maybe it's you. Maybe your cup is just empty. And you're like, I don't have anything to give right now. I'm exhausted, I'm depleted. Maybe it's because maybe it's a person or a people that are just difficult for you personally. Let's be honest, we all have that. There's different people that just trigger us different than others. There are people that for all of us could be the kind of people that we would more easily just view as a crowd to contend with, have to push away, than to actually see them as people that just maybe God put in our life to care for. And maybe it's people at work, maybe it's people in your family, maybe it's people at church, maybe it's people whose views are different than yours on religion or sexuality or politics. People that would just be a lot easier to push away and go, contend with them again. I'm gonna tell you what, of all the things that we could see different this year, every single one of us could benefit from seeing each other differently. And it doesn't mean that we agree, it doesn't mean that we're all alike. I actually think that the greatest levels of love are demonstrated between people who actually don't see life the same at all. Anybody can love people that are just like them. So it doesn't mean we agree, it doesn't mean we're all alike. But it does mean that we go into this year with a commitment and a willingness, like Jesus, to say, even if it's justified, I will give myself to serve people instead of push people away. I will not see people as a crowd to contend with, a person to put up with, someone to avoid, someone to demean, someone to devalue, someone to vilify. I will see you as somebody to love and to care for. If we're gonna stand together in 2025, and experience some of the change and transformation that 2024 could provide for us, then I think it necessitates that as we go into this next year, we beg God to help us see less with our eyes and more with His. And when our eyesight begins to change, our outlook changes. And when our outlook changes, what else changes? Our outcome. When our outlook changes, our outcome changes. God, I do pray that you'd help us to see like you, that your eyes would be our eyes, so that Jesus, more and more, in an increasing measure, your thoughts would be our thoughts. Your ways would be our ways. That we wouldn't just believe things about you, but we would increasingly become you. In your name, amen.
Over every sin and every fear, every pain and every hurt, over every lie that has been spoken, you are the final word. Over the earth and all its kingdoms, every idol made by man, every doubt and speculation, you are the great I am. Above it all, every name, all praise is yours. Above it all, you reign, let the earth rejoice. You have overcome the world, you will always be above it all. Eternal joy here in your presence, as you are making all things new, making things new. Every people, tribe, and language coming down to you alone, to the King who sits upon the throne. Above it all, every name, all praise is yours. Above it all, you reign, let the earth rejoice. You have overcome the world, you will always be above it all. You're above it all. Jesus, no one is higher. Creation shouts your name as we sing, holy, holy, be enthroned upon our praise. For you alone are worthy, the slain and risen Lamb. All honor, power, and glory, your kingdom has no end. Jesus, no one is higher. Creation shouts your name as we sing, holy, holy, be enthroned upon our praise. For you alone are worthy, the slain and risen Lamb. All honor, power, and glory, your kingdom has no end. Above it all, every name, all praise is yours.
All right, remember all the things. So lots to sign up for, lots to be a part of this week, from the prayer night at Troy, midweek back here, the Hope Water Gala coming up. So we'd love to have you engage in all of it, as much of it as you can. Also, as you walk out this morning, you know this if you're a part and regular here, we have a team that is here for you. It's a prayer team that's going to be in here. They're also out at a table in the lobby, and they're here to pray for you, to care for you, to listen to you, to help you move back into whatever this week has for you. So let us serve you that way if we can. Otherwise, thanks for being with us this morning. So excited to journey in with you to 2024 and all that God has. So we'll see you next week as we keep the journey going.
Anyway, so that was a wonderful service. This is my son, Jack. Jack, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Jack runs the cameras, so I invited the children to be with me today because that is what I want for the fam, to hang out together and worship together. So if you joined with your family online today, we're so glad that we got the chance to have you. It was a blessing to be together with you online watching the service. You are seen and loved by God, and that is what matters the most. So have an awesome Sunday, and hopefully we'll see you here next week.
Bye.